Alright everyone, the nation of Iceland is poised to ban male genital mutilation, aka circumcision. It's genital mutilation when you think about it. I'd boil it down to an issue of liberty. I think that individuals should be able to make that choice for themselves. I understand there are a million reasons why people say, no, you should be able to do this. It's like, within Christendom, why would a Christian even give a fuck about the issue? It's just habituation and culture that gets you to want to circumcise your male children. You're not practicing Judaism. You're not practicing one of the sects of Islam that has, male circumcision. You're a Christian, so I don't even understand quite what the problem is. In Europe, circumcision rates are demonstrably considerably lower than in the U.S. The U.S. is more on par with certain parts of East Africa when it comes to genital mutilation. I think that's a bad thing. So I would support the nation of Iceland, and already the Islamic and Jewish minorities there are saying, well, this violates our religious liberty. If I formed a religion, let's say I had a religion, and just by having a bunch of adherents, somehow magically it gains legal protection, like if it's just you and your inner circle of acolytes, like, the state says, screw you, but all of a sudden if you have 1 million acolytes, even though you're just as goofy and superstitious, suddenly it's taken seriously. If that religion were to say, okay, in order to be holy and pure, all of our male children have to have their pinky fingers cut off at birth, do you honestly think that any legitimate argument in any civilized court around the world could be made successfully that was an issue of religious liberty? No, of course not. It's preposterous. It wouldn't make any sense. So because it was preposterous, but it was, something that they were doing thousands of years ago and it just happens to be a tradition, it's somehow okay? Well, what if you had like a religion? You had a tradition that parents were supposed to sleep with their children or something. Would that be religious, stuff? Or would you say, no, you're not going to do that. That violates the laws of our country. Cut it out. No, you're not. You can practice, you can be part of your religion. Nobody has a problem with that. But if you want this other particular thing to happen, you're not going to be able to do it in our state. No, you would say, of course, it's perfectly fine. You would have a breakdown. Look, people who are into weird stuff would pretend to be members of a religion just to get, weird stuff accomplished. I do not think there should be any religious exemption. I don't think that male genital mutilation should be legal. I think that it should be outlawed. Absolutely. I think we should outlaw it here because it's not a case of personal liberty. Look, as a libertarian, I say this, by the way. The individual is not yet mature enough to make that decision for themselves. And a lot of these same people that, by the way, have no problem with it would say, well, parents shouldn't be able to give their adolescent child, hormone blockers or whatever it is so they can become transgender. They shouldn't be allowing their kid to cross-dress. They shouldn't be compelling their kid to live a certain, gender norm, abnormal lifestyle because, it violates the liberty of that child. They can't make that decision yet, mentally speaking. But you're okay with the parents deciding, within hours of them being born, okay, lop off this body part because Jesus said it made you unclean, and he didn't even say that. That dates back to the OT times. Basically, God made you perfect except for this one little problem. Okay, say like Moses and Solomon. What's the problem, Lord? Oh, your pecker. There's something wrong with it. Like there's a sheath around it. And you've got to, cut off the foreskins of these children. And, I think, wasn't there one situation there where some wife got angry at her husband? I can't remember exactly which Bible story it was. And she gets angry, so she cuts off their son's foreskin with a sharp rock and throws it at his feet and says, oh, thou bloody husband, or something. And it's like, that's the root of this practice, which has morphed. It's been people have been convinced that it's like a medically significant practice, and it's fucking not. It's just a money-making endeavor, and they sell the foreskins to some face cream company. In all honesty, it's about money. It's not about even religion. Christians were never commanded to continue that practice. It's from Judaism. Muslims, I think Muhammad did say you should circumcise and stuff. But then again, there are also groups that do female genital mutilation. Now, look, there's no real difference between male circumcision as it's generally done and some of the more mild forms of female circumcision. The removal of part of the labia majora. It's really not that different, or the removal of a very small portion of the clitoral hood. It doesn't, have any more of a dramatic effect. But we ban those things. We look at it as on par with some of those tribes that literally remove the whole outer genital region and relegate it to basically non-existent status. There are a few scattered tribes that do that. Most of them don't. Most of them, it's basically a labioplasty for the most part. But we ban that. We very rightfully ban that, because that shouldn't be left up to the parents. It should be left up to the person. Once they're, in their early teens or something, like once they're like 13, 14, if they say, hey, I'm religious, I want to be circumcised, I want to be like pure according to the Bible, and who cares? It's their right. They should have every right to get that done. But they shouldn't have it, they shouldn't be something they're compelled to do because their parents happen to be members of some religion. And for Jewish or Islamic individuals, or even some Christian leaders, to say, well, this violates religious liberty, it's a case of the individual who is the ultimate. That's the core of liberty, should be with the individual. Most freedom should be solely an individual thing. Their right to have their body intact, I think, outweighs the right of that religion to compel its members into some, transmogrifying ritual for purity purposes. Or what about parental rights? Well, yeah, but the parents can be part of a religious cult that says cut their finger off or cut one of their ears off. Maybe they're a neo-Amazon. They say, okay, we're going to have our daughter's breasts removed, or we're going to have one of her breasts cut off so she can fire a bow more easily. For some odd reason. By the way, it's also our right to bash our children in the head with a club if it's male. We just keep the males sort of as breeding slaves, like an Amazon tribe. Would that be a case of religious liberty? No. You can't say, well, my religion supports slavery, so, it's my right to own other people. My religion supports killing my firstborn child on an altar at 3 years of age to appease, some god. You can't do that, then why can you mutilate their body? It's really not all that different. It's just a barbaric, outdated ritual that a bunch of idiots did thousands of years ago that has no benefit. And in final here, in closing, I would say some people, they say, well, there's medical benefits. It reduces the transmission of some disease. It prevents, infections under the foreskin. Well, yeah, because you've removed the foreskin. I'm not going to get an infected left ear if I cut my left ear off, but I should be the one making that decision. If a person's older and they get into these weird transformational surgeries, like they want to turn themselves into a trans cat or give themselves a tail or claws, go ahead. It's weird, but you can do it. You're an adult. You can make that decision. If you can find someone willing to perform the procedure and you're willing to go through with the possibility that you get infected, something stops working, right, you die or whatever, yeah, okay. You should be able to harm your own body if you want. You should be able to kill yourself if you want. I think they should legalize that too. But to say that other people have the right to force you into doing that because you're too young to complain and stop them from doing so, yeah, I think that's a little weird. I think it's weird that we still practice these things. I think it's weird that we still circumcise infants. There are plenty of places in the world where circumcision is extremely, extremely uncommon. Guess what? The number of people who get phimosis or some other horrible dread disease, oh no, you got an inflamed, pecker or something. The number of people who actually suffer any real complications is relatively low. Civilization goes on. Most people are fine. And if there is a legit medical reason, like, oh, our kid's dick basically keeps getting infected, well then, yeah, go ahead and I guess circumcise, but there's no compelling reason to preemptively do so. I would class it as child abuse. Absolutely. I think that it's wrong. You can look at that as an odd belief. I think in the future, you look forward 30, 40 years, we're going to have more of a debate over this. Because as Islam becomes, more common in parts of Europe, people are going to be addressing female genital mutilation, which they recognize as a form of mutilation. Even if it's just basically a glorified labioplasty in most cases. They're going to be looking at that and saying, well, that's barbaric, it's cruel. Individuals who are intelligent will then point out, hey, we've been doing it to males for a long time. Why the fuck is it legal to do to them? Why? What? So they can be mutilated, but the females can't. Wonderful. What a just society. I think that argument will end up sticking. So congrats to the Icelandic people. Very forward thinking. It should be banned. Now, except in a case where there is a legitimate, absolute, proven medical benefit situationally, literally recurrent problems with the foreskin's too tight, therefore we need to remove part of it. Okay, go ahead. It's for a medical purpose. It's like saying, well, we're going to preemptively remove our kids' tonsils at birth. I don't think that would fly, but if they keep getting inflamed over and over again, they get tonsillitis constantly, Yeah, you'd say there's a medical benefit. In this case, there's nothing else we can do. Their tonsils keep getting inflamed. They missed 10, Sally missed 10 days of school just this month because of tonsillitis. Okay, well, then we'll remove the tonsils. No more tonsillitis. Otherwise, you wouldn't just do that for no reason. It wouldn't make sense. Wisdom teeth. Generally speaking, you don't drill into your child's jaw and remove the whole core of bone that would become wisdom teeth when they're 2 days old now, do you? No, I think you fucking wait. You wait until they're a little older when those teeth might be erupting. Then you can go ahead and drill in, or wait till they erupt or whatever. And half the time that's just nonsense too. Most of the time that wouldn't cause a problem either. It's actually kind of odd, and in some cultures they don't really remove wisdom teeth. It's rather odd that we do that too. Although that has actually more of a medical benefit. Going to be kind of hard to keep those particular teeth so far back flossed and therefore keep them from rotting. You can, but it's harder. I would think that cleaning your penis is pretty straightforward. I would think it's a no-brainer that you're supposed to clean yourself when you shower. That's just me, though. I guess that it's okay to just chop off pieces of your child's body because there might be a medical issue. Because some god commanded it 3,000 years ago. That makes perfect sense to me. No, I don't think it makes sense at all. I side with the intactivists, although I will tell you one thing. Those that oppose male genital mutilation need to cool it with the really out there weird forms of protest, because mostly if you take an unbiased reading of people who are like, they don't feel strongly one way or the other, they look at that and they think you're nuts. And they end up siding with people who are like, oh, circumcision's okay. And then because they're more receptive, they then read their very flawed studies saying, well, there's a 5% reduction in some medical problem, which half the time it's not even properly sourced, it's not even real, but they're going to believe it because they're looking at you, they think you're a lunatic, basically. They think you're crazy. That's about all. Peace out.